Good morning and welcome to the Daily Huddle. Today's Friday and it's the 26th of July. Oh my God, the year gone, Tara. Who knows? Well, wherever you are, you're listening to the Daily Huddle. Today, my friend Giovanni Gonzalez and I are hosting a conversation that you're going to find so much fun. And the context question for that conversation is, if it were you, would you give up being president if it were you? We're going to sink our teeth into that conversation, and we're inviting Tara to dance with us. Gio, here's my first thought about this whole thing. It's not in my nature to give up something that A, makes me look good, B, makes me powerful over a lot of people, and C, puts a lot of money in my pocket somewhere, somehow. You got to get my thinking about this whole thing is coming from my upbringing. I'm from Haiti, and I was raised in an environment where my parents would tell me, if you get into this kind of thing, it makes you a bad person. You're going to be someone who's corrupt. And once you get it, you're never going to let it go. So I'm a little bit tainted, Gio. What's your take on it? Would you give up being president if it were you?
I love this conversation. I love when you say I'm a little tainted, which is I think everyone is a little tainted in many ways, but very few of us are aware of our taintedness or our conscious biases or our unconscious biases, right? But what I want to say about the context of this conversation, would you give up being president if it would have been you?
Yeah.
If you would have been Joe Biden, would you have given up? And or if you had the chance to continue to be the CEO of a company, if you had the chance to continue to lobby through that or power through yourself through that, would you have given it up? And this is a conversation that I want to give this context, Saurel, that I want to invite folks and I want to invite people who listen to listen from the filter of the opportunity of a reflection, of an inquiry for the possibility of leadership, not a political conversation, not in the context of, we're going to talk about politics today and we're going to pick a side. No, not at all, because it's, Saurel and I we're thinking, what a great conversation to reflect on based on our understanding of human nature and our understanding of leadership and our understanding of history. Not necessarily we're going to engage in a political conversation. Every single day that I show up, I always want to say the same thing. Look, we're about to go through this process of elections. And I like to joke about it. I like to say it's a human experiment, if you will. So choose love. Choose love. Yeah, choose love. The people you love, the people you don't love that much, the people you are incomplete with, the people who are going to vote different from you, the people who have a different opinion from you. Choose love. But this conversation is about you allowing yourself to reflect on a certain human behavior, that we can see patterns, that we can see trends. And like Saurel was pointing to, is that you could even see your own bias about yourself in the conversation. If you would have been the one with the possibility of continuing to be the president of the most powerful country in the world, would you have given it up?
And if you did, why? Why would you? I mean, what would drive you to do that?
What would drive you to do that? Now, if we look at history a little bit, if you allow yourself to go back a little bit on whatever you remember from school or from the history books you read, that is not something that human beings give up. That is not something that human beings say, you know what, I'm just going to pass it on to the younger generation. That's just the right thing to do. Nah,
in fact, it is what people prepare themselves for their entire lives. I go get educated. I go get the relationships. I work my tail to the bone to campaign, to get the minds and hearts of the people and get their votes. I don't give that up easily. So why would I even go there unless it was to look good for my peers or the people pressuring me?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what was in the space of the current president right now for him giving up, whether it was pressure, whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing, or his cognitive bias, his cognitive declination. I don't know. But this is what I want to say, Saurel, about it. Here's what I've been sort of studying as a student of leadership and a student of history and a student of human behavior. One of the things that I've noticed over my life as a student of this topic is that for the most part, people become their environment they work at. And what I mean by that is that I have really good friends around who have become who I grew up with and went to college with me, who have now been running for office, running for some public office. And these are really cool, good people, right? When I went to college with.
Yeah.
And now they're tinted. When I speak with them, it's like it's very one line versus the other line. It's a very strong view against another person or another view. And I remember being in college with them thinking, man, we weren't like that. We
You know,
we we didn't used to think like that. We didn't used to go just one side of the conversation without including everybody else.
yeah.
So it points to people become the culture they work at some point.
Yeah. And if you look kind of before that, Giovanni, you and I are fond of saying that people follow people before they follow a vision. So, my experience has been whether I'm in church, whether I'm in a corporation, I walk in and I can feel the pressure to comply, behave the way everybody behaves, speak the way everybody speaks, and do the things they do. I mean, if I was in business development and sales, and people would go and eat out every night. How do you court a client? Well, you take your client out to dinner. Gosh, that's not something I wanted to do all the time, but I did it all the time. How do you court a client? Well, you go play golf. I never learned that one. So, yes, people do become their environment. They become the culture they're in. So what we're starting to point to is that, would you have done the same thing? Well, if the current president is inside of a certain culture, maybe that culture told them what to do. As I was looking at this, as I'm looking at people speaking in the news, the tendency is to actually look at the man and say, oh, that's a good man or that's a bad man, as opposed to look at what structure and what context has that person been in that actually drives that decision. So I'm leaning on the side, Gio, that people do become the environment they're in. And as I become the environment I'm in, I tend to behave, speak, and think the way that environment dictates. And then I call that me. So I guess I'm inching in the direction of saying, if I were in that environment, surrounded by those people, maybe I would have gone the same route. Not because I'm a good man, but because I'm that man in that environment.
I don't know I can't say what I would do since I'm not in that environment.
Well, I said maybe.
What I certainly can say from studying people who are in that environment is that they won't give it up. They will create their own culture. They will create their own friends. They will isolate the other friends who think differently. and they will create their own narrative to be able to hold on to whatever they say their power is.
Yeah.
And what, as students of history, what we look at people who eventually become the leader of a country is that absent of a really strong condition for democracy, of a really strong conditions for democracy, really, really strong, they will alter the conversation, the political conversation, so that they can hold on to their office as long as they can, and if not them, their families or their right-wing person, etc. So it's a really interesting phenomenon for me to see as a student that got ruptured, that the normal course of events got ruptured. Like, no, I'll just sit down.
Yeah. The normal course of event you're pointing to, Giovanni, I want to bring it up for the sake of people really getting that what you and I are having is a conversation anchored in some of the leadership principles that have driven our work for a long time. And one of them is that people are used by something. And for the most part, they're unaware that they're being used by something. And it is the normal course of event to be used by, I need to dominate things here. I need to be the one ruling. I need to be the one gaining. And I put all that inside of a bucket I call self-preservation, Giovanni. So, there's no way that I'm giving up what makes me look good as a leader, as a manager, as a CEO, unless I'm forced to do it. So what do? I do exactly what you're pointing to. I create an environment around me. I create friends around me that makes the conditions such that the probability of me preserving what I have is the highest. And that's where I always go. So it's very unlikely, as you're pointing to, that people would give up being president if they were in that seat.
Very unlikely. So it's an interesting phenomenon to study, and in many ways to learn from. So I'd love to hear what Tara is, what's Tara thinking, and maybe some of you, what are you guys thinking? What are your thoughts, comments?
Yeah,
Tara, I want to make the disclosure of keep the conversation scholar, keep the conversation. Not to you, Tara, not to you, but everyone else.
In other words, don't show your cards, girl.
I got it. I got you. I'm not going to show my cards.
I wasn't talking about you, Tara. I was just saying conversation scholar and thought-provoking in that manner. Go ahead, Tara.
Yes, I actually appreciate the reminder, because I don't think the point is to make this specifically about what's happening in politics. It's more about what would you do if you were in those shoes, and that is some self-awareness stuff right there. And here's what's popping up for me. Many years ago, I was in a VP role for a big company, and I was paid well for it, and I liked the role. The company was bought. New leadership came in, and I did not align with their values. So I didn't like the role as much, but I surely liked the title. And I started to feel them kind of try to push me out because I wasn't in the in crowd. So here's where I think we're missing a little piece of this, and it's the ego. My ego wanted me to stay, but my ego also didn't want to be fired. So I resigned before I had to face the humiliation of losing. And so on the outset, so to answer the question, if I were the president of the United States, part of me says I would never give up, never give up. And we like to say Joe Biden made a sacrifice and he gave up his dreams for the better of the country. Perhaps he did. And perhaps it is the almighty ego that says I would rather bow out gracefully than face a loss. So either way we look at it, I think we cannot dismiss the role of the ego in this conversation.
You can't. Absolutely not. And that's the point. That's the piece about self-preservation. that we're talking about. The ego you're pointing to, Tara, wants to stay alive. It wants to convince us that it is us. And forget all the intentions you had. Forget all the lofty goals. Forget the vision.
Yeah.
Preserve this now, here, point blank.
Yeah. So it makes you wonder, like, I would like to believe, I believe that I would step down, but I would like to believe that I did it for the right reasons. And that's where it gets
What's funny though, Tara, is the way you painted it and created it. It's as if in the world of the ego, there is no right reason. There's just self-preservation, because I stay because I want to and I want to keep on, hang on to the power. Or I leave because I want to save face.
Right. The ego.
And then there's that possibility in between, right?
Absolutely.
One of the aspects that I like about including to this conversation, ego, is I think what was being triggered for me is that I think there is so much dismissiveness in the world of educating ourselves in human behavior and leadership. The conversation of the ego is so dismissed. Like very few people that I know who have accomplished the leadership of a large organization. And I don't know of a country, but I do have the chance to work with people who lead massive organizations and massive departments of a country. And very few times I ever encounter a conversation with them about ego. Very few times they say something that they're checking their ego. It's like it disappears from their, and if I bring it up, it's very dismissive. So I have to be so careful. I have to be so eloquent to not use the word ego, because it's so triggering. Like, I don't have ego. What are you talking about? I am here for the greater good, or I'm here for the survival of the organization, or I'm here because I care about the board and I care about the stakeholders, not ego. And so in my line of work, I have to manage so carefully to bring up return on investment, the culture that creates people to leave. I have to manage so many things to walk around the conversation of ego. And if I happen to be on my A game, then the people who I'm talking to, they actually bring it up for themselves. I don't know if it's my ego. And I'm thinking, this is definitely your ego here, creating a massive, what do you call that? A massive fire around you. So I want to say something. I don't know if my ego is in check enough that I would have given up the presidency. I really don't know, Saurel and Tara. I mean, I like power and dominance as much as the next folk. And I like to create for myself a gap, an opportunity for me to reflect for the rest of my life, the possibility of giving it up.
Yeah.
The possibility of being in a position where I can have so much power and still think in the context of that will never make me happy. Yeah. Or that there is no, or that power is an illusion. What do I mean by that? Power is an illusion. We're all going to die. Power is an illusion. We're all going to die. Everyone who at some point hold on to some power is forgotten and is dead. And their conversation, the only thing that's alive were their ideas, not their power. And so ideas don't die with a position. Ideas don't die with the presidency. Ideas don't die.
Yeah.
People die. So I'm thinking for myself, Saurel, around this conversation, I want to get around ideas that are worth sharing. not hold on to a powerful position.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what it's triggering for me.
I like that. And Gio, I'm struggling the way you and I dance and struggle in a conversation, reveal something, and something came up for me. Would I give up that position if it were me? And what came up for me is, I'd never be in that position in the first place. And here's why. I'm never the king. I can't be the king because kings are bad. However, I'm the guy who's going to save the world by making a king. Because, if I make the king, it'll be a good king and it'll be a king I can follow. So the pattern I've seen for myself is that I'll do just enough to stay below that leadership rank. And if I'm in it, I'll do everything I can to get right back down because I don't want to be seen as the king because kings are bad. And if there's a king in that spot, I better be the one making it. If I'm not the one making it, I'm probably going to undermine it. Now,
that's another kind of presidency, if you will.
Yes, it is, right? It's the ego that Tara's pointing to, that whether it's in check or not really determines how you behave and how you do things. So what I'm seeing is that there was that pattern in the beginning. And through study, through practice, through all of the things I've gone through, that pattern is in check. But I wanted to share that because your speaking, Tara and Gio, brought that up for me. So in this conversation,
what if your people really needed you to be the king? Would you be the king just long enough to make a better one?
I would. And that's the part that I've been up to since discovering that. Yeah, I prefer to be the kingmaker because mom and dad always said these kings are bad.
Okay.
And you don't want to be bad. So it took something for me to actually move in that direction and serve when called and serve when I see the need to serve. Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Tara, anything triggering for you? Or Florence has her hand up, and I'd love to hear what Florence is thinking. What's percolating over there with her?
What's percolating with me? I've been contemplating this question, the same question you were contemplating right today. Now, what's percolating for me is that man, there's something in the Bible whereby God is saying to a nation, I did not institute kings. Like, you don't need to have kings. But if you're going to choose a king, make the right decision and choose a good king. And that supports what Saurel was saying, that because we really are kings in ourselves. And really, God gave us that authority and to choose to live, to choose life or to choose death. He gave us free will, each and every one of us, to choose. We don't need a king. We really don't need a king. We really need to be kings and queens in ourselves and to let in the inner guide us. And so when I see, for me now, decision time is the person or persons who let me be me, who are facilitating that sovereignty in me. And like in a democracy, I feel that, well, at least the idea of a democracy that comes out in a what you call dictatorship or whatever is control. That's not according to the creation, to God's plan for man. because God didn't make man to be controlled. So that's what what I have to say. And so when it comes to the ego, I see the ego as actually the role of it is control too. And it doesn't surrender easily. But you as king need to put the ego in place. So with that, I'm complete.
Thank you, Florence.
Florence, thank you. I got that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Florence. Thank you for sharing what you're thinking. Really great.
Well, for each of us, the ego is always in play. It's always at play, Tara, isn't it?
I believe so. And you're right. It has kind of become a dirty word. But when I was interviewing
maybe
salespeople, we looked for high ego drive. That was one of the things we looked for.
Yeah.
So it's not all bad.
No, it's not bad at all. And what I'm discovering in this conversation is that whatever's happening over here with me, over there with you, Gio, and others watching and listening to this conversation, there's an element of ego involved that what Gio was pointing to is that I dismiss it. And I train others to dismiss it so that it becomes this invisible, powerful, pervasive thing that drives everything. And we're all walking around oblivious to it. So maybe the lesson I'll give myself the permission to take away from this conversation and the circumstances that triggered it is that not like it's the truth, but consider is all ego. And when it's the only time it's not is when I'm considering that it is, so I can look and choose, like really maybe choose an intention that's near and dear to me. I do have an intention that Haiti is a developed nation in my lifetime. And I give my word to let that intention choose. And more often than not, I'm now seeing that there's some ego in the mix. It kind of feels good to say that promise. That's ego too. Yeah.
I'll tell you, thank you, Saurel. Thank you for sharing that. I'll tell you what my takeaway is. I love how you said it. It's humbling the way you said it, but also powerful for me to look at something. So what I'm taking away from this conversation is you said it's all ego. And I was about to challenge you. I was like, no. But then I thought, well, I guess so. And also I thought, and from yesterday's conversation at the Daily Huddle, I also think it's all spiritual. It's all ego and it's all spiritual. And in coming back to this question of would you have given up the presidency? And I think for some of us, it is a relevant conversation. But for some of us, like you said, well, this has nothing to do with me. I'll never be in a leadership position where I can see that kind of an impact. But that's not entirely true, because in our own life, we're the president of our own life. And with our children and with our significant others and with our families, we do have a lifetime profound impact. And in many occasions, we get to confront that kind of possibility. We get to confront, would I give up my power at this moment so that somebody else can take on what's important? And so what I'm taking away is, for my life, is it's all ego and it's all spiritual. And I want to reflect. I'm taking on reflecting for myself the possibility of giving up power for myself. What would that look like for myself? Giving up power. Yeah.
Tara, before we close.
Let me see. I want to hear what Tara has to say.
Exactly. Before we close, I want to hear your takeaway.
My big takeaway is that we should stop dismissing ego and just see how it aligns with our values. I think that's my biggest takeaway.
That is cool. You know, I'll stand on your shoulders and say it. It is only when I'm checking ego that ego's not running the show. So I better be checking ego every second of my existence. Not like a burden, but something that is now I'm seeing as worthy of the promise I've made, worthy of the intentions that drive us. Yeah. Thank you for that, Tara.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Great conversation.
So, gang, we're going to close with our 7+1 tenets. And the way they're occurring for me today, Giovanni, is as really choices as opposed to mandates. Inside of the question, inside of today's question, love, would you give up that relationship if it were you? Stress less. Would you sacrifice an entire lifetime over the worries and concerns of the ego? Eat mostly plant-based. Will you follow the crowd or not? When you're sitting around the table and you said to yourself, man, I need to check that thing, and they're having burgers, what will you do? You know, it's a matter of choice. Eat mostly plant-based. That's a choice. Laugh out loud. Will you give yourself the permission to just live and see life and yourself as not so significant? You know, like throw your head back and just let it cackle. And, you know, some people may say, your laugh sounds weird. No. Give. You know, it takes something to give. So in the world of checking our egos, sometimes I have to give something that appears to cost me something. And that's the last thing my ego wants to do. Sleep, get some sleep. Whatever it is you think you have to get done before you go to sleep, it'll be there waiting for you tomorrow. Last but not least, folks, move. And it doesn't have to be like you're moving like Usain Bolt or some big athlete. No, just put your tennis shoes on. Take a short walk, 100 yards. Begin that way. And last but not least, I'm not going to say check your assumptions today. I'm going to say check your ego. Because it may be the thing that's running it all. Folks, this is our daily huddle. We'll be here every day next week and every day for maybe the rest of eternity, Giovanni. I don't know. It's great to have you here. And it's great to be with you.
Love you all.
Until next week.
One love, guys. One love.
Thank you, guys. Great.
One love.